The day started innocently enough. I brought a cake to celebrate Song Tangshi's return to base. What I stumbled upon was my wife teaching Bai Yanzhou, her prized white moonlight agent, how to shoot. Their intimate embrace made my heart sink, but I tried to maintain composure as I announced my presence with a small cough. What followed was beyond my worst nightmares. Bai Yanzhou, with an almost childlike pout, suggested using me as a live target for his assessment. His reasoning seemed almost cruel in its simplicity. A scarecrow isn't the same as a real person. Despite my frantic refusal, Song Tangshi's initial hesitation crumbled when she noticed the scar on Yanzhou's hand, a reminder of when he'd protected her. Her words cut deep. Learn to be generous like him. My wife assured me repeatedly that they were using foam bullets in an air gun. Harmless, she claimed. But Yanzhou had other plans. He secretly switched the foam bullets with real ones, though I wouldn't discover this until I was lying in a pool of my own blood. The irony wasn't lost on me. My wife's precious agent couldn't shoot straight because of an injury sustained protecting her, and I became the solution to this problem. To ensure I remained still, they welded me to the target post with thick iron restraints. The metal bit into my flesh, circling my neck so tightly I could barely breathe. Each shot brought new agony. 5, 6 bullet holes marking my body like cruel constellations. When I trembled from fear and pain, Yanzhou's voice cut through the air, cold and threatening. Don't move. The trauma from my childhood, the deep-seated fear of gunshots that triggered panic attacks, none of this mattered to them. When I tried to explain, my voice shaking, it only seemed to anger them more. The final cruel twist came when I began coughing up blood after a shot to my left shoulder. Yanzhou, supposedly the brave protector, fainted at the sight of blood. And my wife? She chose him, rushing him to the hospital while leaving me behind, bullet-riddled and bleeding. I survived somehow, but the story didn't end there. I later learned that to lure me back, my wife repeated this cruel scenario 99 times more. Each time, another person was tied to that same post, their fate sealed by iron restraints and merciless bullets. The manipulation began subtly. Bai Yanzhou, with practiced innocence, rolled up his sleeve to reveal whip marks. "It's okay, brother Juxian," he said softly, tears welling in his eyes. "I'll just take whatever punishment the boss gives me." It was a masterful performance, one that immediately triggered Song Tangshi's protective instincts. Her transformation was instant and terrifying. Gone was my wife, replaced by someone I barely recognized as she grabbed me roughly. Despite my pleas about my unhealed fractured ribs, injuries caused by none other than Yanzhou himself, she began binding me to the target post. The irony was bitter. These were the same ribs Yanzhou had broken before slandering me as a male green tea trying to frame him. "Remember when you were injured?" she snarled, veins bulging in her arms as she gripped my shoulders. "Yanzhou brought you meals despite his injured hand." She conveniently forgot that Yanzhou was the cause of my injuries in the first place. But how could I argue? He was her combat companion, bound by experiences I could never share. The threat came next, delivered with cold precision. If he fails this assessment, he'll be sent to northern Myanmar. Be kind, or you won't have it easy either. I couldn't help but laugh. A hollow sound. Even with him here, my life is already miserable. How much worse could it get? The answer came in the form of searing pain. Song Tangshi had brought out a red-hot iron, welding me to the pillar. My screams echoed through the air as she calmly explained, "Yanzhou got burned while cooking for you. Only by experiencing pain can you understand his intentions." I wanted to point out the absurdity, comparing kitchen burns to deliberate torture, especially when his home-cooked meals had clearly been store-bought. Pushed beyond my limit, drenched in sweat and pain, I finally uttered the words, "Song Tangxi, let's get divorced." Her response revealed the true depth of her control. "Think about your sister," she said coldly. She's still in solitary confinement under my orders. The words hit me like physical blows. She was holding my only family member hostage. Her satisfaction at my submission was evident as she turned to Yanzhou, her voice suddenly gentle and coaxing. Continue now. He won't cause any more trouble. What she didn't see, what she couldn't know, was the calculated look in Yanzhou's eyes as he switched the foam bullets for... The story of how I met Song Tangxi began with tragedy and heroism. After losing our parents, my sister Xin Yuning and I found ourselves in an orphanage, clinging to each other for support. One day, my sister's playful disobedience led to a near-fatal accident. She got caught in a high-voltage electric fence. Without thinking, I grabbed her, and the current coursed through both our bodies. As others stood frozen in fear, Song Tangxi appeared like an angel of mercy, saving us both. My sister's eyes sparkled with admiration. Thank you, big sister. I want to be a firefighter like you when I grow up. But Song Tangxi's response revealed her true nature. I'm not a firefighter. I'm a mercenary. Don't follow my path. Study hard and stay on the right track. Despite her warning, both of us were forever changed by that encounter. My sister vowed to follow in her footsteps, while I silently promised to make her my wife. What Song Tangxi never knew was the secret we carried. Our father wasn't just any man. He was a world-class assassin. Growing up in that environment, both my sister and I were exceptional marksmen before we could even drive. But for 7 years, I buried these skills deep inside me, playing the role of an ordinary admirer. I believed that genuine love could overcome her lingering feelings for Bai Yanzhou. Eventually, I did become her husband, but perhaps never truly her love. The irony cut deep as I watched her embrace Yanzhou, teaching him shooting techniques just as she had once taught me. Each intimate moment between them was a knife to my heart, made worse by knowing I had helped create their bond. The last time Song Tangxi was in danger, an ambush that left her unconscious, I was the one who saved her. But when she awoke, it was Yanzhou at her bedside, claiming credit for my actions. I had agreed to this deception because Yanzhou's father, a high-ranking official in their organization, promised the best medical care for Song Tangxi in exchange for letting his son take the credit. My love for her outweighed any desire for recognition, so I stepped aside without hesitation. Looking back now, I realize how this sacrifice, like so many others, only served to strengthen their bond while diminishing my place in her heart. All these years, I'd been her silent protector, dressing her wounds, taking bullets and blades meant for her, always there but never truly seen. I had foolishly believed that love meant sacrifice, that someday she would see the depth of my devotion. Instead, here I stood, facing the barrel of her gun, my sister's freedom being used as leverage against me. The bitter truth finally sank in. Sometimes love isn't enough to change someone's heart. As my consciousness wavered between reality and darkness, unexpected sounds cut through my pain, passionate kisses and intimate whispers. Through blood-blurred vision, I witnessed Song Tangxi and Bai Yanzhou locked in an embrace. When they noticed my gaze, Song Tangxi's response was casual, almost cruel. Don't misunderstand. I'm just helping Yanzhou improve his focus. Besides, it's just an air gun. It can't hurt anyone. The scene before me was surreal. Yanzhou half undressed, his shoulders bearing fresh marks from Song Tangxi, while I stood welded to a post, my clothes soaked in blood. The bullet holes in my body were deep and unmistakable, yet they treated my pain as mere theatrics. Yanzhou's complaint rang out with false concern. I don't dare shoot anymore. Brother Juxian is being dramatic. My aim is perfect. I clearly didn't hit him. Song Tangxi's response was to stroke his head tenderly, assuring him everything was fine. Another shot rang out, missing me, but causing the wooden board beside me to explode. Splinters flew into my chest, and I felt at least 3 ribs crack under the impact. My plea came out weak and desperate. Honey, my chest. I think my ribs are broken. I need a hospital. A brief flash of concern crossed Song Tangxi's face, but before she could act, Yanzhou held her back with a practiced pout. Sister Tangxi, I missed again. Looks like I need another penalty. The intimate implications in his tone made my stomach turn. I tried calling out to my wife again, but was interrupted by Yanzhou's theatrical cry of pain as he nursed his supposedly hurt palm. Song Tangxi immediately abandoned any thought of my condition, rushing to blow on Yanzhou's reddened palm. The recoil must have been too strong, she cooed, massaging his hand. The wooden board she carelessly let fall against me barely registered. My physical pain was nothing compared to the agony of watching their intimacy. The arrival of Zhou Ting, one of Song Tangxi's subordinates, brought a momentary hope of rescue. Her shock at the scene was palpable. Bai Yanzhou, you're shooting at a living person? This violates every organization protocol. Her threat to report him seemed to carry weight, but Song Tangxi's cold smile suggested something far more sinister was at play. This moment perfectly captured the twisted dynamic, my wife comforting my tormentor while I bled, the organization's rules being flouted for Yanzhou's whims, and the cold realization that even those who recognize the wrong being done might be powerless to stop it. The addition of Zhou Ting's character adds a witness to the cruelty, highlighting how far Song Tangxi had strayed from her organization's principles in her blind devotion to Yanzhou. Zhou Ting's arrival brought a brief flicker of hope, quickly extinguished by Song Tangxi's dismissive response. They're just foam bullets, Zhou Ting. Don't speak without understanding. But as Zhou Ting approached me, the blood-soaked reality was impossible to deny. Her voice trembled with growing horror and anger. Sister Shi, look at him! These aren't foam bullet wounds. Bai Yanzhou is lying. Brother Zhuxian is still recovering from a fracture. How can you be so heartless? The situation escalated as Zhou Ting pulled out her gun, training it on Song Tangxi. Despite my own pain, my heart lurched at the sight. Even after everything, I couldn't bear to see Song Tangxi harmed. Zhou Ting, please, I begged through tears. Lower your gun. You have family. Don't risk everything for my sake. The irony of defending the woman who had allowed my torture wasn't lost on me, but I couldn't let another person's life be ruined because of this twisted situation. Song Tangxi's response was chillingly casual, her chin lifted in defiance. If we were using real guns, he'd be dead already. The fact that he can still speak up for me proves he's fine. Zhou Ting's disgust was visible as she spat on the ground, her voice rising with frustration. Look at him! He's covered in blood. And that recoil from Yanzhou's gun? Since when do foam bullets kick like that? The question hit its mark. Yanzhou's face went pale, his composure cracking as he looked helplessly at Song Tangxi. But she was ready with excuses. Even if that last shot was real, it only hit the wooden board, not Zhuxian. Her defensive tone revealed a crack in her certainty. Do you think I'm blind? Zhou Ting's voice cracked with emotion. Do I need you to tell me about your husband's condition? But before she could finish, another shot rang out. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for impact, but instead heard a muffled groan. Opening my eyes, I saw Zhou Ting clutching her abdomen, blood seeping between her fingers as she collapsed. The scene turned even more grotesque as Yanzhou maintained his facade. This is a foam bullet. Song Tangxi's laugh was hollow, cruel. Keep pretending, Zhuxian. These actors you hired are better than your own performance. But as I met Yanzhou's eyes, my concern wasn't for myself anymore. Whatever grievance you have against me, leave innocent people out of it. This moment revealed the true depths of the situation. Song Tangxi's willing blindness, Yanzhou's escalating violence, and the price others paid for getting involved. The addition of Zhou Ting's intervention adds a layer of tragic heroism, showing how even those trying to do right are punished in this twisted dynamic. The scene also highlights the protagonist's fundamental decency. Even while suffering, he tries to protect others, including those who hurt him. Bai Yanzhou's performance reached new heights of deception. Lowering his gun, tears welling in his eyes, he played the role of the wounded innocent. How can Brother Juxian say such things? These are just foam bullets. Even if you and Zhou Ting are acting passionately together, you shouldn't slander people. Then, turning to Song Tangxi with childlike eagerness, Sister Tangxi, 4 bullets left. May I continue? Song Tangxi's approval was immediate and chilling. Of course, Yanzhou, you're truly gifted. Using real people as targets has clearly improved your aim. Her gaze shifted between my pain-racked body and Zhou Ting's bleeding form, a cruel smile forming. We won't need Juxian tomorrow. Zhou Ting, since you're so concerned about him, you can take his place. Zhou Ting's response was filled with bitter courage. I'll stand there. At least I'm better than someone who makes her husband take bullets. Her words triggered something dark in Song Tangxi, whose smile turned predatory. You've finally revealed yourself, Zhou Ting. Are these feelings for your brother-in-law why you've stayed single all these years? The accusation transported me back to that fateful ambush. The truth was far simpler. Zhou Ting had saved lives by organizing a tactical retreat, yet was branded a coward and traitor. When she nearly took her own life to prove her innocence, I had stopped her. Her grateful embrace, witnessed by Song Tangxi and Yanzhou, had been twisted into something sinister by Yanzhou's poisonous implications. Zhou Ting keeps her distance from men, Yanzhou had whispered then, because she's infatuated with Brother Juxian. Why else would he defend a traitor? The feelings must be mutual. I remembered Song Tangxi's pale face that day, how she had pushed away my supporting hand. I had attributed her weakness to illness, not realizing she was already believing Yanzhou's lies. Zhou Ting's desperate cry pulled me back to the present. Brother Juxian and I are innocent. But her simple, honest declaration fell on deaf ears. Song Tangxi's eyebrow raised in a silent signal, and Yanzhou's gun was once again aimed at my chest. The fear in Zhou Ting's eyes reflected a terrible understanding. Truth meant nothing in the face of chosen blindness. Zhou Ting's final act of loyalty came at a terrible cost. Having felt the power of Yanzhou's foam bullets herself, she understood exactly what was coming. When he pulled the trigger, she used her remaining strength to throw herself in front of me, taking the bullet meant for my chest. Bound to the post, I could only watch helplessly as she crumpled to the ground. Song Tangxi's interpretation of this sacrifice was twisted by her jealousy. Her innocence proven by taking a bullet for him. How touching, she sneered. My gun helped unite you star-crossed lovers. Even in practice, she risks everything. Yanzhou added fuel to the fire. Instincts don't lie. Looking at my wife, I finally saw her clearly, not as the heroic figure who had once saved my sister and me, but as someone willfully blind to truth. That cherished memory of our first meeting shattered like glass. As Yanzhou raised his gun again, Zhou Ting coughed blood, her words heavy with resignation. I'm sorry, Brother Juxian. This is all I can do. They're truly beyond saving. The next shot found my right hand. I felt tendons snap as pain and numbness shot through my arm. In that moment, I understood. Yanzhou knew I was the real marksman who had saved Song Tangxi. He was methodically destroying my ability to ever hold a gun again, cementing his false position as her savior. I managed a bitter smile. 2 more shots. Hurry up. Song Tangxi, if you knew I was your true savior that day, would you regret any of this? My challenge provoked Yanzhou into his cruelest shot yet, one aimed deliberately at my lower body. The impact made my eyes go wide with horror. He knew about Song Tangxi's previous miscarriage, knew our struggles to have children. This shot wasn't just about pain, it was about ensuring I would never have descendants. The tears I'd been holding back finally broke free. Physical pain I could handle. But this was different. Despite everything, I had still dreamed of having a child with Song Tangxi, a living symbol of our love. Now that possibility was literally bleeding away. As blood pooled beneath me, I caught a glimpse of Song Tangshi's face, shock and concern finally breaking through her cold facade. But it was too late, far too late. Just as I glimpsed concern in Song Tangshi's face, she shattered my hopes by breaking into applause. "Legendary shot!" she cheered, giving Yanzhou a thumbs up while deliberately ignoring the blood pooling between my legs. Yanzhou played his part perfectly, feigning innocence. "Sister Tangshi, didn't Brother Zhuxian claim he was healthy? Why is he urinating blood? Has he been deceiving you?" Song Tangshi's disgust was palpable as she stared at my wounds. "Even you can see through his tricks." Yanzhou's performance continued, his voice gentle with false concern. "Sister Tangshi, it's rather undignified for Zhuxian to be bleeding like this, especially with Zhou Ting present. Let me clean him up. It's not appropriate for a lady like you." The gratitude in Song Tangshi's eyes as she looked at Yanzhou made me sick. "You're so kind-hearted, always thinking of others. Zhuxian has always been sloppy. Thank you for being so considerate." The moment Yanzhou reached me, his true nature emerged. His fingers dug into my wound, voice dripping with venom. "Even if you survive, you're just a eunuch now. You'll never be worthy of Sister Tangshi." Returning to the platform, he maintained his innocent facade. "What era are we in? And Zhuxian still uses such scheming tricks, faking illness for attention. Come on, last bullet," she said casually. I was barely conscious, my hopes of fatherhood destroyed. I silently prayed for Yanzhou to aim true and end it all. The final shot struck my heart. Through fading vision, I saw Song Tangshi move toward me, only to be held back by Yanzhou's latest performance. "Sister Tangshi, I'm so dizzy. Their fake blood must contain formaldehyde. I think I've got leukemia." As Song Tangshi's face contorted with concern for him, a new figure burst onto the scene. My sister Xin Yuning, who had somehow sensed my agony and broken free from her confinement. The whir of her chainsaw cutting through my restraints was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. As she caught my falling body, her tears matched my own. Song Tangshi rushed through the hospital corridors, her heart pounding as she carried the unconscious Bai Yinzhou on her back. His body felt unnaturally warm against her. "Sister Tangshi," he whispered weakly, "my blood feels like it's on fire. I don't think I'll survive the night." His words made her usually stoic face twist with worry. "Don't be ridiculous, Yinzhou," she said firmly, though her voice trembled slightly. "If anything happens to you, even a scratch, I swear Shen Zhuxian will pay with his life." A small, tender smile played across Bai Yinzhou's pale face. "Protecting you has been my life's greatest honor," he murmured. "Dying in your arms would make it complete." With theatrical timing, he let his hand slip from her cheek, a single tear rolling down his face as his eyes closed. "No, please," Song Tangshi broke down, clutching him desperately in the hospital room. "Yinzhou, don't leave me!" Her sobs echoed off the sterile walls. The doctor cleared his throat awkwardly, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. "Ma'am, I should mention, we only gave Mr. Bai a mild sedative. He's physically fine. This seems to be anxiety." Just as relief began to wash over Song Tangshi, the door burst open. Zhou Ting stormed in, her eyes blazing with fury. "You murderer!" she screamed, lunging for Bai Yanzhou. "Why are you still breathing? You tried to kill Zhu Xuan during target practice. You aimed straight for his heart." As Zhou Ting raised her knife, Bai Yanzhou dropped his act instantly. "Sister Tangshi, help!" he cried out. "Zhu Xuan sent her to kill me." Song Tangshi, who had been at the payment counter, heard the commotion and rushed in. She tackled Zhou Ting, landing a solid punch to her chest. "How many times must I tell you?" she growled. "Nobody harmed Zhu Xian." "Liar!" Zhou Ting struck back, her fist connecting with Song Tangshi. "These wounds are real. That bulletproof vest was the only thing that saved me. I'm here for Brother Zhuxian's revenge." I used to call you Sister Shi with respect, but now you're nothing but a beast to me. Song Tangxi grabbed Zhou Ting's collar, pulling her close until their faces were inches apart. Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You betrayed your husband and fellow officers for someone so worthless. That makes you worse than any beast. Her eyes narrowed. Tell me the truth. What are your real feelings for Shen Juxian? You threw away your career and disobeyed orders for him. Why? Song Tangxi's words cut through the air like a knife. You're fired. Don't ever show your face at the Corps again. Fired? Fine by me, Zhou Ting shot back. I only felt gratitude to him for saving my life. Not everyone's like you, throwing their whole heart at another man. I've wanted to get away from someone like you who can't tell right from wrong. It's sickening. In a sudden move that silenced them both, Zhou Ting stripped off her military uniform and the bulletproof vest underneath. The sight of the bloody bullet wound made Song Tangxi's breath catch. Despite their current conflict, years of serving together made her heart twist at the sight. Who did this? She demanded, concern breaking through her anger. Tell me who hurt my people. They'll pay with their life. Moving closer, Song Tangxi examined Zhou Ting's back. In her 20 years of military service, she'd never seen injuries this severe. Who could have done this? Your precious protege did this, the one you trained, Zhou Ting spat. You can't even look properly, can you? Feeling guilty? But these wounds? She gave a bitter laugh. They're nothing compared to what Brother Zhu Xuan suffered. He didn't even have a vest. She reached into her collar and pulled out 2 bullets, letting them fall with a cold clatter. You don't know the truth, do you? Your beloved Bai Yanzhou switched the foam bullets with lime ones when no one was looking. If Shen Juxian doesn't survive, Yanzhou's a murderer, and you're his accomplice. You'll watch your No! They're lying! Bai Yanzhou protested, his voice rising. They're trying to frame me. They want me to fail the assessment and get sent to northern Myanmar. Zhou Ting's laugh was cold and hollow. They're quite convincing, aren't they, Sister Tangxi? I understand if you've fallen for their act. I'll wait for you to see the truth. Her lips curved in a sneer. Don't believe me? Go see for yourself. As Song Tangxi turned to leave, Bai Yanzhou called out dramatically about dying, clearly trying to make her stay. Be good and wait here, Song Tangxi said firmly. I need to check on Zhu Xian. He still has injuries that haven't healed. I promise I'll come back. Later, Song Tangxi's calls, over 100 of them, went unanswered. With no way to reach anyone, she rushed to the shooting range, searching desperately for evidence. When she reached the bullseye, her boot stuck in something wet and dark. Blood. Song Tangxi knelt and touched the dark liquid with trembling fingers. Years of mercenary work had taught her to recognize blood instantly, real or fake. The truth hit her like a physical blow, draining the strength from her body. She collapsed to her knees. This much blood. There wasn't this much before, she whispered, her voice shaking. Shen Juxian, is this another one of your tricks? Her words echoed in the empty range. Did you pour this here just to make me feel guilty? Her phone's sudden ring cut through her thoughts. It was Bai Yanzhou, his voice oddly cheerful. Sister Tangxi, I have a problem. None of my underwear is here, and Brother Zhu Xuan's are too small. The housekeeper brought some of my clothes, but they're all wrong. Could you bring me the largest size when you come back? For the first time ever, Song Tangxi hung up without a word. She walked to the shooting platform, her face a mask of stone as she pieced together the day's events. Questions tumbled through her mind. Had Bai Yanzhou really tampered with the bullets? How had she missed it? And Shen Juxian, no vest? How badly was he hurt? Were his old wounds causing him more pain? She drew out the day's weapon, her expert fingers finding the muzzle. One touch told her everything. Hydroshock rounds had been used. The death god's bullets. Her heart turned to ice. Under the cold moonlight, Her beautiful features hardened. In one fluid motion, she raced to the monitoring room. The footage revealed everything. While pretending to leave, Bai Yanzhou had switched the bullets. But worse, much worse, he had replaced the bulletproof vest with cheap plastic. "I trusted them both," she whispered, horror dawning. "I put it on without question." She knew intimately what dum-dum bullets did to flesh. One bullet can kill, and they hit dozens of times. Her phone rang again. Shen Juxian's name lit up the screen. Relief flooded her as she answered the video call. "Juxian? Are you okay?" But it wasn't Juxian. Shen Yuning's face filled the screen, her eyes swollen and red with tears, twisted with hatred. "What do you think?" Her voice was raw, broken. "Sister-in-law, no, Song Tangxi, you monster. I'll curse you even in death." "You're worse than animals!" Shen Yuning's words left Song Tangxi speechless, frozen in place. "Was it because I caught you cheating on my brother?" Yuning's voice cracked with rage. "Finding me was one thing, but torturing my brother? If you were angry, you could have divorced him. You could have told him to leave." Her voice rose to a scream. "Why did you shoot him so many times?" "Can I see him?" Song Tangxi whispered. "Never." Shen Yuning cut the call abruptly, knowing if she continued, she might not control her murderous urge. After this rejection, Song Tangxi made another call. "Zhou Ting, bring Bai Yanzhou here." Later that night, at the shooting range, Bai Yanzhou found himself bound to the same target post where Juxian had been welded. "Have you lost your mind?" he screamed, as Song Tangxi poured molten iron over his arms and ankles. "How could you do this? Please, it hurts!" His screams pierced the night air, but Song Tangxi remained unmoved. "You're too loud," she said coldly. "Juxian was quieter than you." She poured more molten iron into his mouth, watching him convulse in agony. Through his pain, Bai Yanzhou spoke of the past. "I was 20 when I brought 18-year-old Shen Yuning to you. Sister, I want to follow you," she said. "My brother, he wants to protect you." His voice grew bitter. "I did everything to get close to you, Song Tangxi. Supported you in your darkest moments, offered myself during celebrations." He continued through gritted teeth. "My sister finished mercenary training, became your bodyguard. I didn't know about Bai Yanzhou then. But he claimed he'd loved you forever, said I'd driven you away." His eyes filled with tears of pain and memory. "After that, everything changed. You believed I'd driven away your precious Yinju, the innocent child who grew up in your mercenary group. I became the calculating villain in your story. No explanation I gave mattered. You made me kneel," he gasped, grabbed my head and slammed it into the ground until I made an apology video for him, declaring my love. I drowned in unrequited love beside you, trapped. Then one day, after Bai Yanzhou blocked and deleted you again, you came to me drunk, held me close." His voice softened with the memory. "Shen Juxian," you whispered, "didn't you say you loved me desperately?" "This is your chance to marry me," she whispered, her kisses trailing across my body with unusual tenderness. This was different. She'd never kissed me before, always focused solely on physical release. That night felt like a dream, but at the height of passion, she whispered a name against my ear. Yinju. The words struck like lightning. After a moment of stunned silence, I pretended not to hear, holding her closer instead. We married after that night, but something changed. When sober, she never touched me again. Still, I clung to hope that one day she'd truly see me. Though I knew the truth, she hated me, blamed me for Bai Yanzhou leaving. Her treatment grew harsh, demanding, unrestrained. Then came the pregnancy. 3 months in, Bai Yanzhou returned. Song Tangxi ordered me to prepare elaborate dishes I'd never made before. I spent hours studying cooking tutorials, determined to get everything perfect. But Yanzhou took one bite, complained about the taste, and stormed out. Stop being so obvious about your dislike, Song Tangxi raged at me. Who are you trying to impress with that sour expression? Through tears, I tried to explain. The doctor said the pregnancy is unstable. I'm worried sick. I can't pretend to smile. But she dismissed my concerns as melodrama, accused me of not understanding priorities. I swallowed my pride, avoiding any conflict that might strain our relationship or harm the pregnancy. That night, she didn't come home. Instead, Bai Yanzhou posted on Weibo a photo of wine-red nail marks across a muscular back, with the caption, "Conquering her body thrills me more than defeating any enemy." At midnight, a message from her. "Baby, may your happiness extend beyond your birthday." I spent the night in our living room, shaking. The next day, she summoned me to bring fresh clothes to the base. When Yanzhou reached for them, I saw last night's passion marks clearly on his skin. When she finally escaped, she found me barely alive. I begged her not to seek revenge. "She saved our lives once," I said. "Consider the debt paid." Seeing my calm resolve, Shen Yuning made a promise. If Song Tangxi ever hurt me again, there would be no mercy this time. The eastern Sudanese bamboo forest stretched endlessly before us, stalks reaching toward the sky like ancient guardians. "Can you believe there's bamboo in Africa?" I mused to my sister. "You just found out?" Shen Yuning smiled. "There's some in the Americas, too. We'll see them in Brazil next." I ran my fingers along the thick stalks, feeling their strength. My mother's words echoed in my memory. "Zhu Xin, be like bamboo, bend, but never break." Tears welled up as I pressed my forehead against the cool surface, missing her desperately. That's when I felt it, a slight roughness under my fingers. Carved into the bamboo was my name, Zhu Xian. My heart stopped. "Brother?" Yuning noticed my sudden stillness. "That carving, that handwriting, who else but Song Tangxi?" I whispered. "Zhu Xian, you finally came." The voice froze my blood. After a year, Song Tangxi stood before us. The ending came through my sister's phone screen, a stark legal notice that felt both expected and shocking. Top mercenary Song found dead from hundreds of gunshot wounds. Suicide in African bamboo forest. The words hung in the air like smoke.